checking on TikTok, but sorry. Oh, are we back? Oh, we're back on YouTube. Look, we're just mixing it up like we do.
And we got Facebook running.
No Facebook. So sorry about that.
Okay.
And so, Cedar, this is a great question actually. I've had a lot of people ring up about this week. How do you change a Langstroth hive over to a flow hive?
Okay, changing our Langstroth to a flow hive is quite easy, and we do have a live stream showing you just how to do that. But basically, you're moving the Langstroth over, putting your flow hive in the original location, and transferring the bees and the frames over to your brood box. Now, you may want a second super if you want to put the Langstroth frames, if there's a super on there, and that way you could make a double brood out of it. Or you could decide to take away as much honeycomb and reduce it to just the brood frames in the bottom box and keep it more in the configuration out here. Let's just have a look at this. For those that are just tuning in, we're harvesting a bit of honey right here on the edge of this pond. It's amazing the places people keep bees. Let us know whereabouts you keep bees if you have a hive, but people are doing it on balconies, on rooftops, in built up areas in the city, in urban backyards, out in the farmland, and here's one in a pond just for fun. So we're harvesting a bit of honey here, and it is beautiful honey. We have a spring honey flow still coming in here. So what we're going to do is show you this super lifter, which is our latest invention that helps you get into the hive and really look after your bees, because it's a bit of a barrier is lifting off the heavy boxes in conventional beekeeping. So we worked hard for a lot of years trying to design a simple, easy way, and we'll show you how to do that just over here in this hive down the end of the row. And if you've got questions, just put them in the comments and we'll get to answering those. So first of all, we're going to light the smoker, and then we're going to show you our super lifter invention, which is in the bag there if you haven't seen it. So if you are in a fire danger area, something like this in front of the hive to put your smoker on is a good idea to limit the chances of bees, of the smoker really setting fire to the mulch on the ground. Okay. So all we're going to do is put a little mulch in here. There's multiple ways to light smokers, but in this case we're just going to get the fire going. And the trick to it is don't stuff it full all at once. It'll go out. Even experienced beekeepers still do that, get impatient, stuff it full, and then it just goes out. So you're better off just letting that fire get going. And this garden mulch is quite dense, so it needs a little bit of nursing to get going. But yeah, you can imagine if I just shove some more hay in here now, it would just go out. So if you've got questions, put it in the comments below. This is the hive we're going to be inspecting. It's often nice to start with some observations from outside the hive. Have a look at this. This is interesting. This is a frame we have harvested recently, and the bees aren't bringing in a lot of honey in this hive yet because they're not filling, I can see, but what they're doing is tearing off that capping and rebuilding the cells. So this is a frame we've harvested recently. Now, if they are on a flow, they'll rip off all of the capping in a day, use it to rebuild the cells, and away they go again. If they don't need the space, they'll take their merry time about it. So that's really interesting to watch, and you can see it chewing with their mandibles there, the wax and reshaping. So I'm just adding a little bit. Now, at the same time, I can give my hands a little smoke to mask my mammal smell. Now, always have your gloves handy because sometimes your bees do get more aggressive, and it's a good idea to keep yourself protected. If you're new to beekeeping, wear your gloves, because until you really get the hang of it and understand how your bees behave, and it's a good idea to limit stings with a good bee suit. My favourite is this ventilated bee jacket, and also protect your hands. But as an experienced beekeeper, I'm happy to go gloveless. And if I get a sting on the hand, oh well, I'm fine by that. I prefer not to get stings on the face, so I'm going to put my veil on and protect myself. Okay, so that smoke is starting to go there. We'll give the bees a little bit of a smoke in their entrance, like that. We'll leave the smoker right in front. Returning bees will get a whiff of the smoke. And now we're going to show you how to set up your lifter. We're also going to need our caddy, our little toolbox, which I left up here. And in there is all of the trinkets. You've got your bee brush, you've got your hive tool, we've got the frame rests as well, and we'll show you them. They're a new thing here. You can see we have also this fun little magnetic tool clip, which you can put here and put your hive tool on like that, which is a handy way to keep it. Okay, so this is our super lifter. If you've got questions, put it in the comments. We'll get to answering those shortly. So it comes in a bag like that. You can order it without the bag as well. You've got the lifter here. Now, I'm going to give you a special show of how to pick it up, because once you get this first step, the rest is quite easy. So see how these handles are on top and the words are the right way up? All you need to do is grab these handles in your hand, spread your hands apart, and roll your wrists in. It should look like this. Then it's ready to connect onto the hive. So I can connect it on like this. So step 2 is connecting on that lower bracket. We've written 2 on there. Step 3 is written here, which is rolling these up onto your upper load point screws. Step 4 is written here, which is lifting this pole leg. Now at this point, your hive is opening without you having to do all of that chiseling. And it can open in a nice, gentle, easy way. Then you're rolling the leg around like this, and on the inside where your thumb is, you put down the leg. So once you get the hang of it, it actually becomes really quite easy and quite fast. For years we had inventions that were more complicated and slower to connect, with lots of connection points, and we decided to go back to the drawing board and make it not only easier but faster. And people are really appreciating that, because just like that, I'm now into the brood nest. Game changer for looking after the brood nest down here in the brood box. So I can peel off that excluder now. If you want to take away even another step, you can screw the excluder to the top box there. Quick look for the queen on there. And we will also show you how to connect the shelf brackets, which are a new thing. And the way they work is we've designed it especially to go around the super lifter. So that goes on there like that, and you can adjust this for a tighter fit or a looser one, which in this case it's quite a tight fit, which is what we want, but hives with thicker walls, you can spin this around. So that's there, a nice frame rest. So I'll be able to pull some frames, put it on there, and show you what's going on in the brood nest here. So this hive's looking nice and calm, which is what we want. If they weren't, we would add a little more smoke. Now I didn't fill the smoker full of fuel, so now's the time. I'm just going to grab some mulch from right under the hive here, keep that smoker going. Just bear in mind this may get hot, so you can use a hive tool or your glove to close it. Okay, now I'm looking for a frame to pull out. Now sometimes, especially if you're doing naturally drawn comb, you can get a bit of wonky comb. So I'm looking for one that's nice and straight to start. Always go sideways first, or you might pull out your nails. Look at that, everything's in pretty good shape in here. We've inspected it recently, so that should come up nice and easily, like that. There we have a good example of naturally drawn comb, where they've connected it to the comb guide at the top. They're starting to connect it to the walls. Now at this stage it is actually quite fragile, so we want to avoid tipping it over that way. Now this comb isn't heavy because it actually doesn't have much in it. So straight away I'm going, oh, we better check and make sure we have a laying queen. So I'm looking down the cells looking for eggs or very young larvae. I'm just seeing a bit of nectar in this frame. So we're going to put that one on our frame rests down here and pull out another frame. And once you've got just a couple of frames on your frame rest, then it's easy to move about your hive because you can go sideways and then up, which saves that rolling bees as you pull frames vertical. Okay, what do we have here? A lot of brood, that's good to see. So you can see there, that is the worker brood. And there's a little bit more over here. And what else do we have? On the other side, you've got some more worker brood, and that's what I wanted to see. You've got shining young larvae glistening down the cells. They sometimes get called grubs because they could be called a little grub down the cell, but it's a white larvae. It's like a caterpillar that's stationary and gets fed by the bees thousands of times a day by the worker bees, or the nurse bees they get called when their job is feeding the developing larvae. Very cool. Any questions coming in?
Yes, Eda, we've got someone tuning in from Oklahoma and just saying, do you always have to have a queen? And would they need to feed them to keep them warm in the winter time? So they're in Oklahoma.
Okay, so chime in and let us know about your climate there. If you know the beekeeping season, basically if you get long, cold, snowy winters, you will be making sure they have enough stores to survive that winter. Here in this subtropical region, there's a year-round honey season. We can keep harvesting all year round. So that's a bit similar to perhaps California. But when you get into those colder regions, then you need to make sure you've got honey stores. But chime in, let us know what the season is like where you are. Okay, so I'm not seeing the queen on there, and I don't really need to see the queen because I've already seen that there is young worker larvae, and I'm happy that she must be here somewhere. This is the population's lowish here, and that does make it easy to work, but it's also something to keep an eye on. I'm not seeing a huge amount of bees in this hive. We've taken splits recently in the springtime, so the numbers will still be building back up. Chime in, let us know what you see here and here. Have a look at that. What have we got there? And what have we got there? So we'll see if anyone answers that, what we're seeing on this naturally drawn comb.
Great. So as you mentioned before, right at the start, we had a few tech glitches, but Noel had asked, and he's come back again just on YouTube, similar about the person wanting to take the tray out in Sydney, just worried that it's getting really hot up in Brisbane. Is it advisable to remove the tray, or should they put holes in the roof gable?
Okay, don't put holes in the roof gable. My experience with ventilation up the top is the bees will block it up, even in the hot times. The reason why is the bees actually fan a convective cycle in the hive. So it'll go up the centre generally and down the walls and out. And as soon as you put holes in the top, you're upsetting that. And while you might be helping them on that day, as soon as it gets cool, they can no longer control the climate in their hive. So they'll get up there and they'll block holes in the top. and all of the migratory lids that I used to have had holes up there, and they would block them up without fail when I was conventional beekeeping. Now, as far as ventilation goes down the bottom, bees are incredibly good at air conditioning, and they'll be fine even if you leave the tray in. However, in extreme heat waves, you will be assisting them if you remove the tray altogether, allowing maximum ventilation. But it's coming from the bottom, so the bees still get to control the temperature, because they're trying to keep that brood nest at just below our body temperature. And if you've got brood in here, or particularly open brood, that temperature really needs to stay the same, a constant, if you like. And that's why if it's, say, below 15 degrees C, we avoid taking open brood out of the hive, because they might actually die from cold shock. Very sensitive to temperature.
Great. Now Clinton's tuned in, and plus he's answering a few questions for us as well, and he said that on that frame that you were just holding, Clinton saying it's drone brood and worker brood.
Well done. Okay, so thanks, Clinton. You've got drone brood over here, which stick out more proud like little mounds, and then you've got the worker brood here. Drones are bigger, so they need a bigger cell, and when you've got naturally drawn comb, they'll often be a mixture. And what have we got over here? We've actually got a queen cell. Now this is a pretty small queen cell. It's springtime here, so it's pretty common. Okay, it's a queen cup, I just couldn't see. So it's a queen cup there with nothing in it, and that's common in the springtime, just in case they want to raise another queen. If it was sealed over, there'd be a queen inside, which might be a challenge to Her Royal Highness, and you may find a supersedure, which is where the hive itself necks the queen and raises another one. So in that way they can really make sure they've got a queen doing her job as an egg layer. All right, keep those questions coming in.
So a question said about positioning your hive. Is it best to position it facing east, north? Which is the best place?
Okay, so commercial beekeepers are going after maximum production. So you read bee books and it'll say face it towards, so in a direction so the morning sun can shine in the entrance, wake up your bees, get them going earlier, and then you'll get more production. Backyard beekeepers, well, there's probably a higher priority order. And the first one being, is the entrance pointing in a direction where the bees won't bother anyone? Because the bees come racing out in this direction, up and away. Now, if that's right at your front door, then your guests might get bees in their hair, stings on their head, not good. So think about where the entrance is pointing, give them a little space to get up and away where the flight path, it gets called, won't be bothering anybody. And the next one will be sun or shade. So hives do fine, and you see most beekeepers keeping their hives in full sun. However, afternoon shade in summer would be ideal. Avoid a really shady, wet place, because you will get funguses like chalk brood might more easily take hold if your hive is in a damp area, okay, with no sunshine. So let's just pull out one more frame, see what's going on as you think of your questions. So we got a lot more brood on this, more open brood, which is fantastic to see. We've got a few drones as well, wandering around. It's typical in springtime for the hive to be raising lots of drones. And while you're there, Clinton, let us know what that is there. That little larger cell there pointing downwards. Awesome.
Fantastic. Cedar, can you keep a hive like this in a suburban or an urban, rather, garden setting?
Absolutely. It's one of the amazing things about beekeeping, and particularly flow hives, is keeping them in an urban setting is very common and very popular because you can have a very small footprint like this. You don't need to have acres and acres of land. Your bees will get out and forage on a 6 mile, 10 kilometre radius and bring that nectar back in, and then you get this amazing thing. If you're looking after your bees, you get a lot of honey stores. Then you can get a real amount of produce to share with your family and friends without even having any land. So for that reason, it's very popular in the cities, on balconies, in high rises, on rooftops, in urban backyards, and of course out in the farmland as well. Keep those questions coming in.
So how many pounds or kilos, depending on which part of the world you're living in, do you harvest from a flow hive, from a full hive, if it was full?
Okay, so our flow frames, you can see here, are a bit wider than the conventional frames, and that's because when bees are storing honey, they like, if they can, to build the honeycomb nice and wide. I did a lot of measuring comb in the early days to set the sizing of our flow frames. Now, so we have 6 across here, which matches an 8-frame Langstroth hive, and each one could hold 3 kilograms of honey. So if your hive is full, then from this box, which is our smaller size, you'll be getting 18 kilograms of honey, and somebody will need to convert that to pounds for me.
Fantastic. Cedar, Bo's just wondering, he's just finding some honey is leaking from his flow frames, like into the little channel where the plug goes, and he's like, is the honey is maybe too hot and runny, or are the bees not preparing the cells properly? And he's just wondering if you've got any tips. He's not sure what to do. So it's coming through to his trough, but they obviously haven't capped it.
Yes, okay, so that's a very common thing, and half the time you'll find the bees do a great job of sealing all the flow frame parts together, and sometimes they don't. You get this little trickle of honey coming through into the trough area. So what we did when we were designing is to make sure you have, there's a great example. Look at that. So you've got this frame here which has no honey build up, but this one does. See that little bit of honey build up there? And we've made the cap clear so you can see that. Now, there's a leak back point which we've designed especially so that honey can go back to the bees. If it's left blocked up too long, the bees will block up everything, then that honey, especially if you're in a humid climate, could go fermented. So what you need to do is, first of all, you can spin that cap around, and often that's all you need to do in order to break the little wax seal down here, but I can see that didn't do it. So what we then need to do is you can grab a flow key, or you can grab a stick, or even the hook on here, and we just need to unblock that little point down here from the yellow parts to the clear. And now what you'll see, and you can see through the cap here, you'll start to see the bees' tongues licking up and licking all of that honey out, and we've left a bee tongue sized ridge here so that ants can't get into that area, but the honey can drain out. That's a perfect example there of how it should be, where it's just draining back into the hive. So unblock that little leak back point either by turning that cap around or pulling the cap out and just unblocking it manually. And that way that honey will go back into the hive for the bees to reuse. Now, if it's been there a long time and gone fermented, then put your tube in, which is another way to easily unblock that area with a little tongue on the tube, and drain that fermented honey away and discard it. So that's a little bit of maintenance that often we don't bother doing, but if you're onto it, you can, and that way the trough remains nice and clear, ready for you to harvest next time.
And Cedar, if you choose not to harvest, does it matter? Like, can you just leave the honey?
Certainly can just leave the honey, and the caveat on that is springtime, leaving all the honey in the top box may cause an issue in the brood box where they start storing a lot of honey down here, and then you get a brood nest which is honey bound, which is the term we give to a brood box where all the cells are full of honey and there's nowhere for the queen to lay. And that could be a trigger for the hive to swarm. So they might go, there's nowhere for the queen to lay, half of the bees and the old queen leave, and while your hive often raises a new queen and away they go, you lose half your bees all of a sudden, and that's not ideal. So we tend to make sure we're making some space in the springtime by harvesting the honey from your top box, and also sometimes taking some honey away from the edges of the brood nest.
A couple of people asking, said, do we have Varroa in our apiary here, and if so, how are we treating it? What are we doing?
Yes, we have Varroa. It came here in February, so it's been here all season, and what we are finding is the formic acid strips do a great job of getting rid of a lot of Varroa. If you put the formic acid either on top of your brood frame here, those strips, or a lot of people actually put it in the pest management tray down the bottom, you will get thousands of mites raining down. Now, caveat on that, the weather's warming up, you do have to be careful. We wouldn't be putting it in this week because we've got a very hot week of weather. And you need to make sure that, especially in the first 3 days when the formic acid pads are in, that you don't have a day hotter than 30 degrees C, or the bees fan a lot more, evaporate the formic acid pads more, and you may get a lot of bees dying due to an overdose. So that's an organic acid, and a lot of people use that just to bring the mite level from very high to very low, but it's not something you want to do all the time because it's quite rough on the bees as well. So you can find that actually sometimes if they get a bit too much of a dose, you'll find a lot of dead bees at the entrance. You find them pulling out young larvae and pupae as well. So there's also the oxalic acid, which is really common. We're still waiting for approval here in Australia for the oxalic acid strips. However, a lot of people are making them because they're getting too frustrated and can't wait any longer, or they're buying them in from overseas or whatever, but basically they're little strips that go over the top and will give you a more longer lasting protection rather than this kind of Varroa nuking bomb which the formic acid pads are. Other people will use the synthetics like Varroa or Amatraz. Now, I like to keep it organic. I like to eat a lot of honey. I don't want to be questioning whether those synthetics are in the honey, whereas the organic acids are present in the honey already. But it's up to you. There's lots of tools for managing Varroa. It's very important in this first, especially in this first year, or maybe year and a half, where Varroa first comes. There'll be a lot of what's called Varroa bombs, where your hive is robbing out dying colonies and bringing back all the mites into your hive. So you've got to be onto it, otherwise the levels might get too high and Varroa might take over your hive. And then usually what happens in this area is the hive beetles then finish it off. So make sure you are inspecting and checking for Varroa and doing something about it in order to keep your hive healthy through this time, if you live here in Australia.
So Jay's wondering, and I don't know if it's still there, that you pointed out that little cup before. They were just wondering what it was, because their hive had about 10 of them the other day.
Ah, great question. So that was this frame here, I think. Oh, at least it's got one. You've got a little cup there pointing downwards. And that is what's called a queen cup. And they, especially in the springtime, will be building a lot of those just in case they need to raise another queen. Perhaps they're gearing up to swarm. Perhaps they're doing that in case they need to supersede the queen. But that is a typical thing to see where they're raising those queen cups. If you see it sealed and hanging down like a peanut shape, then you have a queen in it. And that queen may be your new queen for the hive, depending on what happens, or she might actually get a sting right through the queen cup before she even emerges by a rival virgin queen. So the bees generally will be maintaining the hive with a single queen. However, you can get into the situations where temporarily you might have two queens in your hive, a mother-daughter, but soon enough there'll just be one as the egg layer to the hive.
Right, now we've got Slobodan tuning in from Serbia, so hello and welcome from Serbia. And just wondering, like starting from an empty brood box, is it better to take a split? And then how long would it be before that brood box would be developed and I would add the flow super on top of it?
Okay, great. Chime in, let us know what the honey season is like in Serbia. It's fantastic to hear whereabouts in the world you are. So basically what you need to be doing to get your hive started is getting what's called a nucleus, which is a split from another hive off somebody who's selling bees, or you can go ahead and take a split from another person's hive. And we showed you how to do that last week on the live stream. Dial back and have a look at that. We've also got a wealth of knowledge at thebeekeeper.org on how to get started. Now basically what you'll be doing is getting in your bee suit and your smoker and installing perhaps 5 of these frames into your bottom box. Put the remaining frames in, center them in the middle, nicely packed together, look after them, and they'll grow from there. And if you do take a split from a friend, in the springtime you'll actually be helping them reduce congestion in the hive, and that way the hive will be less likely to swarm in the springtime. So it's a nice thing where bees naturally multiply, and you can then easily source some bees for your hive. Okay, this is great. We've got a lot of naturally drawn comb here. I'm just going through the box and having a look at it. Now typically you get honey on the edge, and I can already feel the weight. There's a lot of honey in this one. And look at that beautiful example of a honey frame where you've got uncapped honey, you've got capped honey, and this is just a wooden surrounds, and the bees have done the rest. They're amazing at their architecture and building their comb. They excrete wax with their wax glands and use their mandibles to somehow join in the hexagon matrix, and it's hard to know how they do it, but it's an incredible work of art and teamwork in the hive. So if you wanted to, you could take that frame away and serve it with some cheese and some blueberries at your next party, and people will be very impressed with your honeycomb, and it's a beautiful thing to enjoy as well. And the bees will actually build that comb back really quite quickly. Of course, you don't want to take any that's got brood in it, and typically the frames on the edge don't often have brood, so they're the ones to go for. Now what we could do though is, because I'm noticing that some of these center frames are actually getting old dark wax. So as a beekeeper, when you're doing your brood inspections, you're often putting the ones that are old and dark, and you actually want to cycle the old comb out periodically. You put them on the edge of the hive. So if I move that to the edge, the nurse bees will move over there and keep looking after the brood, but they'll then fill it with honey. And what they'll do here, if I move this one that has a lot of honey in it, if I move that towards the center, they'll actually strip the honey out, perhaps move it up into the flow frames, and make room for the queen to lay some eggs. So it's a nice cycle we do, where we move old dark ones to the edge, and then when there's no more brood in it, we can take away that old comb and put the frame back in towards the center for them to redraw, and that freshens up the brood nest with nice fresh wax.
Great. So now I'm not sure where this person's tuning in from, but they went out last night at about 10 o'clock. It was dark, and there was still a lot of bees gathered around the entrance of the hive. The hive isn't overcrowded. Just any tips on what would make them do this at 10 o'clock at night?
Okay. Now, typically, let us know what the climate is like where you are now, but if you're getting nice warm nights and your bees are doing well and there's a big population, they'll just be clearing out to make room for ventilation. So after a really hot day, you'll often see what's called a bee beard at the entrance, or sometimes they're going right up the hive to the top. And that means your hive's really healthy, but also means your numbers are quite high. So you may like to take a split or add another box depending on what season it is, particularly in the springtime, to make sure your hive doesn't swarm if they've got healthy numbers like that. One way to tell whether it's overcrowding is look in the side window as well. So if they're just hot, they'll be outside the entrance, but in the side window here, you'll be seeing, if you're not seeing many bees, then they're simply just hot and moving out. If you open the side window and you can't see the comb there and there's a bee beard, then they are overcrowded, and you might want to address that by adding more room in the hive or taking a split, otherwise they may swarm. Okay, we've got great questions here today, so we're going to start closing up this hive now. They've been very patient and very friendly with us. It's nice when the bees are like this, they're not trying to sting me, and that means that we've got genetics in here that are nice and calm.
Great, just on that, the bees on the outside, see the Clinton's tuned in, and Clinton's in Brisbane, and said the last time he got a fine mist of water and he sprayed the bees so they thought it was raining, and then they went inside the hive. And saying that their bees often stay out after midnight. They're obviously Rage's, his bees, so they'll be out after midnight before they'll go back into the hive up here in Brisbane.
Yeah, nice. Raging bees.
Raging bees.
Enjoying the nightlife out on the veranda.
Yeah, waiting for their shower.
Yeah, and one thing, if you do get a lot of bees bearding, this weather guard really helps, because we've put some nice wood underneath there, both so it doesn't get too hot, but also so that the bees can cling onto it, and you'll find a big bee beard under this, which just means if you suddenly get a bit of cold rain, they have a bit of shelter there. Okay, so we're going to put this hive back together. Now, I have moved frames around, so what I want to make sure, especially if you're in a time with lots of hive beetles like now, that we're not squashing honeycomb against honeycomb here. And otherwise, the hive beetles will have free rein where the bees can't chase them around. They may lay thousands of eggs, and that could be an issue for your hive. So we're just going to pay attention and make sure there is at least a bee gap of 5 millimeters between comb surfaces, so the bees can service those areas, chase those beetles around, and so on. Now this one here can go back in towards the centre as well. It's a nice fresh one, and that just means that we're just freshening up that brood nest with nice new comb, cycling out the old ones. It's good to get rid of a few old ones each year. Now, naturally drawn combs like this, you can just cut it out in the field when it's got no more brood in it, and put the frame back in towards the centre. So quite easily, if you're using foundation, you will need to pre-prepare another frame and switch it. Okay, one of the benefits of naturally drawn comb is you can deal with it right there in the field without needing a processing area in your house or workshop. And that's what we like to do, simplify beekeeping so it all happens right here in the box, your harvesting, your management, and that just makes it easier and a joy to look after your bees. The excluder goes back on, but first of all we'll take off those frame rests. There we go, and up we go like that. Then on goes the excluder, seizing the moment while there's not many bees there. As said, this hive's a little bit low on bees, we'll keep an eye on it, but the brood nest is looking good. Now this is the area we're looking at for closure. This is the only spot that touches, is this end as you come down. So I can see there's no bees there, I'm happy with that. You're lining up like that, and then we can do a nice controlled closure with our super lifter invention, making sure there's no bees on the perimeter, and then we can go as slowly as we like. We're rolling this leg around, collapsing it like that, And then just having a wee little look. Looks pretty good to me. And slowly down we go. And that's a beautiful controlled way which people are really writing in and appreciating, because it used to be really hard. You waddled up with your heavy box and you just dumped it. But now you can do it in a nice, easy, controlled way with our super lifter invention. And it packs up like that, ready to go to another hive or back in the bag. Let's go and have a look at how our honey harvest is going while we answer a couple more questions. Don't forget to put the windows back on the hive, otherwise you might get excess solar heating going on with the sun going into the hive. So you want to make sure those covers are going back on like that. Okay, you're going to follow me back to the hive that we were harvesting at the start and have a look how that went. We'll give you some tips and tricks on packing that up. And have we got another question, Trace?
Yeah, so you were talking about that foundation before, Cedar, on the brood frames, but Bo was wondering, is it a good idea to use foundation frames to limit the amount of drone brood, so that could help with Varroa?
Yes, some people like to use foundation so that they've got all worker brood, and then one mechanical method of controlling Varroa is to then put in purpose drone frames which have a 6.3mm size instead of a 5.3, and that way they'll draw drones in there, and then they'll take those drones away and freeze them, which does kill the drones, but it also kills a lot of Varroa, because Varroa only breed in the developing bees and they much prefer the drones. So that's one mechanical, non-chemical method of controlling Varroa. Now we've got a jar of honey there. This frame wasn't completely full, as you can see. We've got a nice amount of honey to take back to the table. We're moving that key up to the top slot, all the way to the back, and we're turning that to push all of those frame parts down into the cell form position. A little tip is you make sure you keep the key like that as you pack up for a minute or two, and that just makes sure all your parts move into the cell formed position. One advantage of keeping bees in the pond is you can wash things in the water. Thanks a lot for all of your great questions, and it's a great time if you need an excuse to start beekeeping this time of year, and Trace filled you in on what was on offer earlier on in the live stream. Maybe if you want to recap that, Trace.
Sorry, Seeds, did you ask me a question?
Yeah.
Are you asking me a question?
Just a recap on the on what we have on offer to inspire people.
Sorry about that. Yes, so the sale that we've got at the moment, I think it finishes December the 2nd or 3rd. Go to your website. There's honeyflow.com, there's .com.au, there's EU, you name it, we've got it. There's a lot of bundles there with the Flow Hive 2 Plus, which is the Western Red Cedar, which you can see here, and there's some great, you can get a voucher and you can get deals on the Super Lifter. And as I said before, if there's things that you'd maybe like tweaked a little bit in that bundle, please either contact customer support. You can email us, info@honeyflow.com. Call, you'll probably get me on the phone. You can chat, we love a good chat. Yeah, and we're here to help you. The customer support team are here to help you with those bundles, and they'll be available until they sell out, literally. So yeah, honeyflow.com or wherever you are in the world. Thanks, Seeds.
Thanks for tuning in. Same time next week.